Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, if you're wondering why it's a little bit extra bright on this side of the studio today, it's because I got a double dose of awesome joining me in the Hit Lab. Folks, check it out. These two are the owners of Smith Financial Services. They're the hosts of the Podcast on Wheels podcast, and they're also the owners of the mobile podcast studio, Podcast on Wheels. Folks, help me welcome Brian and Courtney Smith. Brian, how we doing today, baby?
Nick, it's so great to be here. And the reason it's exciting to be here today is because as I looked at my big-ass calendar for 2024, one of the things on my bucket list was to be on a big-time podcast. So thank you for checking that off the list for me, brother.
Well, it's my great pleasure, bro. It's my great pleasure. And Miss Courtney, how we doing today?
I'm doing well because Brian has been checking off these goals off of our big ass calendar. So that's been fun to watch and be in a front row seat as he double downs on us and our family and our future. So we're glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have Brian. Brian's somebody I consider a great friend and somebody I'm really excited to get in here today. But we really needed the boss to join us today to make sure that we kept this thing on the rails and we stayed on track, right? You know what I'm saying?
Amen, brother. Facts.
All right, so folks, check them out. You can check them out online at smithfinancial.services, on Instagram at @thereal_Brian Smith, as well as on Instagram at Podcast on Wheels, right? And then Mama Means Business. Is there an underscore in there?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's Mama, let's see, Mama
underscore means underscore business.
Yep. Mama underscore means underscore business. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a loaded thing right there. I can't wait to dive into that. You can check him out on Facebook at Brian Smith's on Facebook. The Podcast on Wheels online. It's podcastonwheels.studio. That's the URL. And on YouTube, the pod is also Podcast on Wheels, right? Mm-hmm. So you guys doing a great job with your media. But literally, as Nick Saban says, you guys doing a lot of stuff. Keep the main thing. And much like my wife and I's journey, y'all's main thing has been the dent you guys have made in the insurance industry, right? So, when as we're going into literally the biggest time of year in that industry and open enrollment and all those things. So, talk to me a little bit about what you guys have done in the insurance space. Let's go into Smith Financial Services a little bit, Brian.
So when we started Smith Financial Services, we were looking for opportunities as we've been small business owners since about 2005. So we're going on 20 years of being small business owners and understanding that there is private health insurance. There is other options. You don't just have to go through, the ACA or what the government tells you qualify for, that there's options for people that may make over $100,000 a year and they're in a different bracket, so they don't qualify for the subsidies. But we can still get them a plan that works for them, custom built, et cetera. So after, hearing her literally cry during open enrollment, at the end of the year and say, I don't know how to do this. I've talked to the accountant. I've talked to our attorney. I've talked to this. So we just kind of took the bull by the horns and said, Smith Financial Services can fill that void for us. How many more people can it help?
That's right. And both of you guys have a very elite, high-level sports background, which we'll talk about as well. But Miss Courtney, I know that the moment that my bride became a part of our insurance company, it just decided to grow really fast. It's amazing how that happened. It was literally magical. Talk to me about your journey in that, because I don't think neither one of you guys stood up on career day in school and said, when I grow up, I'm going to be in insurance, because I sure didn't. Right. But it changed my life. And it changed my life by solving a lot of problems for other folks. Just like you guys, I didn't understand it at all. I was literally went through a horrible claim when I had my appendix out, where I was severely underinsured, and just didn't know it. Right. The cheapest thing was the cheapest thing. So talk to me a little bit, Courtney, about what you've learned and how much you love doing what you do.
Yeah, well, health insurance is the only insurance that you plan to use. So when, we got together and we were talking about building a family, I got my health insurance paperwork out and we started reading through it. And it said, oh, here's the pregnancy clause. So I'm like, okay, great. We're good. We can start this family. Let's get going. And we got, we met that goal. right?
Yeah.
And then we went to go to the doctor's appointment, and it's like, oh, pregnancy's not covered. It's like, well, why is it in the brochure, right? So that was, I think, one of the first round of tears with health insurance throughout our marriage. We were able to get it handled and taken care of, and 2 beautiful babies later, and we were able to pay for everything there. Then it just kind of kept trying to get into health insurance, going through the open enrollment, and everything's so confusing, and we're getting information from our accountant, and you know what, like Brian said, it was just enough. So we're smart. We got educated. We had a friend kind of encourage us to get into this side of health insurance. So, and just from experience, I've been able to relate with a lot of people that I talk with, especially young moms. It's like, hey, this plan has pregnancy. This is how much it's going to cost you, and your baby's going to be healthy, and everything's going to be great. So being able to provide that peace of mind to the starting of a family for people, that's been real special for me getting into this. And something that I wish I had when we went through it too. So solving that problem.
It's not something that you should do on your own, right? So,
right.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the only insurance that you expect to use, right? So, but like all other types of insurance, you don't really want to use it, right? You hope you don't want to, but it's something that's there when you need it, right?
Exactly.
So, well, let's just stay there for a minute, because open enrollment, there's a lot of let's do some myth busting about open enrollment, right? So, Courtney, I'll start with you.
Okay.
Open enrollment starts at 45 days. A lot of times they'll extend it a little bit longer, right? It's usually November 15th. But it's every year it's a little bit different. They're always tweaking it a little bit. I guess trying to make it better. I don't know what the changes are sometimes, but you can actually, you can shop private plans year round.
That's right. So there's no restrictions for a time of year that you can get into private plans. Some of the plans maybe have restrictions within the month. Like you got to have stuff turned in by a certain date to get coverage started on the 1st, but really it's month to month. We can get plans started any time of year. We don't have to wait for open enrollment. And a lot of people that I'm finding out right now are getting kicked out of their plans that they have. So they're kind of scrambling, thinking that they have to wait to open enrollment. So educating a lot of people there that, hey, private insurance doesn't follow these rules.
That's right.
Like we have this, and whatever rates I give you today, those are the rates that you're going to have until you call me and tell me you want to change it, or you turn 65. And it's really that simple. So being able to provide that, long-term ease. That's been fun. Part of the business, as far as insurance goes, helping people is fun. So.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, let's talk about, it's kind of the perfect storm in the way it's at the end of the year, right? So like a lot of people's deductibles, they're rolling over into the new calendar year based on when they start and whatnot. But it's just, it's again, the media, you would think, based on what they say, you would think that you can only buy a plan during open enrollment, right? So that's when most people just are accommodated to looking. And once they started that, probably back in around 2014 or 15 when all this started, now that's just become the time of year that they do this. And it's the worst time of year, in my opinion, because that's when you're buying Christmas presents and doing all these things. Fourth quarter, the holiday season's busy, dude. Busy. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all while you're trying to, get in line and wait to talk to an agent that can hopefully help you out.
Right.
Or you go online and your brain explodes when you look at it on your own, right? So, Brian, talk to me about like you guys are great marketers, man. Talk to me a little about what you guys, how you guys market your stuff, and what are your goals this fourth quarter?
Well, going into this fourth quarter, last year was our first full time with both of us in the insurance business during open enrollment. So we were able to handle more calls, more things, obviously, and help more people. This year, going into the fourth quarter, we now have a team with us that now we're able to say, hey, I've got this, I've got this. Well, having that group of people who are all working together there's 8 or 10 of us, and we get on a Zoom call and we're helping each other out. So we don't have to go stop and ask, or what changed, or how does this work? Or, hey, I've got somebody, you can put a customer on hold, ask a product specialist, come right back, and boom, we've got you an answer.
Gotcha.
This is how it happens. So it's a lot of immediate answers. And as we get into that open enrollment, we're looking at, okay, if this is a seasonal type business, how do we market and keep people abreast of, like she said, you can do it any time of the year. But as far as going into the goals, it's, you learn in this business that, okay, we're going to hit this November 15th to January. but how do we maintain and take care of our customers? And that's one thing we're trying to do a better job of now, is through our CRMs in the book of business, is maintaining that relationship with current customers, because who's your best referrals?
That's right.
And that's how we're growing this business. So
Right.
This is I get questions all the time, just because, you know, I was talking to you guys before we started recording about how my wife and I decided we were going to keep the main thing. Insurance was our main thing, right about 10 years. And it took us 10 years to get to a place where we had decided that was the place where we could stop and then do some other things and diversify from there, right? So, you know, in that 10 years, like, we learned a lot. Okay. It's hard to believe we've been doing this. This is year 12, dude. Wow. Year 12 for us in that space. I get questions all the time. Are we still doing it? Absolutely. You know, I just don't really put my face on it as much. One, because my wife's face is way prettier. Right. But two, you know, it's confusing. It can be confusing. I don't want to be the guy that walks up to you on the streets and opens up the trench coat. And you want watches? No watches. All right. Well, I got candy bars. Oh, you don't want candy bars? I got shoes. You know, an umbrella, whatever it may be. Want everybody to know that we're experts at everything that we touch. Right. So, you guys have done a lot of diversification. Right. Recently, you guys have gotten into a lot of new things, and we're going to talk about that as well. But how did you guys have a place where you decided, like, in insurance, you had achieved a certain spot before you looked anywhere else, Courtney? Or did you guys, was it just like something just popped up and it was too good not to take it up? How'd that work for you guys? Because a lot of folks really struggle with this.
Well, it was almost too good of an opportunity, because it's complete telesales, completely work from home. At the time, we were able to kind of keep doing what we were doing as we were starting this. And now, you know, we were able to move into it full time.
Brian, when did you guys start get into the insurance space?
We both got our license, I think it was 4 years ago.
Okay.
And
y'all been in a minute then.
Yeah. And we started, you know, learning this. How does this insurance? Okay. You know, well, the life insurance is not necessarily the same life insurance across the board. You know, these things, this is this. Okay. So as we learned that, and, you know, we had some things to diversify, but rather than taking and getting to a certain level, you know, she was able to close down a business that she had been running. And then when that asset comes to this business, well, how can we diversify? Because she's handled businesses. She can handle customers. She can handle the appointments. She's selling the insurance. Now, what else can I do to be out in the field and help grow our brand and market, you know? So that diversification came. And one thing that I'm guilty of is a ready, shoot, aim a lot of times, you know, and I'm like, boom, okay, well, what did I shoot at, sweetheart? What was I supposed to have the goals? What were those things on my big ass calendar? You know, so bringing her in has helped strategize this better. So
my wife and I have a big ass calendar too. It's literally that, folks, we're not cussing here, okay? That's what it's called.
Yeah,
Jesse
Itzler. That's right. It's a big ass calendar. It's awesome. You can see the whole year. And one of the things that I was always a funny conversation my wife and I had about that, the big ass calendar proved me right. Come on, you know what I mean? So we were we have lived a charmed life for quite some time, and we've done, like, if we wanted to go somewhere, we just picked up and went. No restrictions. It was great. But when we took on some new projects, well, you know, it's almost like it's a new level. So it requires a new level of like focus, of commitment, and just because some of these projects are massive. So I was trying to convince Rhiannon that, like, you realize if you took all the time that we're on the road or at ball tournaments or anything else, vacations or whatever else we do, and you put them on the calendar, it's like 3.5 months, 4 months. Like, you know what I mean? It's a lot. And we never could come together on that until I was like, all right, let's just look at 2023 and let's just put this color blue sticky note is when we were doing something that wasn't work related. And boy, it was a sea of blue on that sucker. It was awesome, but at the same time, I think it was really eye-opening for us to be able to see what we were able to accomplish, but also how much time we were able to spend away. And if you took a portion of that and refocused it, what that could do. You know, so we all get the same 24 hours in a day. It's just how you spend it, right? It's how you spend it and how you invest it and whatnot. So that was the big-ass calendar. Got Nick a point in the I was right column. So I've got one.
There you go.
I'm still looking for the second one.
There
So
you
if y'all
go.
got any other tools, y'all let me know. Y'all let me know. But all right, well, let's talk about. You mentioned that she had exited a business to get in the insurance space. So both of you guys played baseball and softball at an extremely high level, right? Extremely high level. So talk to me a little bit about how it's hard to leave that. Okay, when you get out of the game, you try to stay in the game, right? You guys were helping young athletes, doing a bunch of stuff. Literally, when the first time I met you guys on Facebook, I'm watching her. She's endorsing and the face of a product to some STEM products
Right.
and whatnot, right?
And we have been utilizing that product a lot. That's a daily thing for us. Yeah, it's a great product.
Absolutely. So talk to me about what you guys were doing before, and then like, dude, my transition into insurance was about like 4 years before I really figured out who Nick, the insurance guy, was and what that meant and all that kind of stuff. It was a long, rough 4 years, right? So you guys made that transition a lot quicker than I did. Talk to me about it, Courtney, what you guys were doing before and kind of how you made that transition.
All right. Well, we've always kind of worked for ourselves, and I don't think either one of us really like to sit still. So you were doing cars and you had baseball teams, and I was doing in-person training. I had a facility that could be rented out, and other instructors could use the facility. I was certifying instructors on my method of teaching girls how to develop softball pitching. And I was doing online lessons and had the YouTube. I had a full expansion of a very, very, very small niche, softball pitching, right? Even like we've talked about it multiple times, like baseball pitching, there's probably 6 or 7 minimum pitchers on a baseball team, but
you would hope, right?
At least, right? And the softball is like, you got two workhorses and one girl who can like get an inning here and there. Let's go. Let's play 90 innings on a Saturday.
That's right.
Right. So, then without the pitch limits. So we put all that energy, effort, and branded, certified, programmed, automated, but it's a small niche.
Yeah.
And when we looked at it, the amount of hours I was spending doing that, there's only so many people. And then after COVID, I was online pre-COVID, and then now everybody, it's access. So there's more online instructors. So before, right through COVID, I had an upper hand because I was already in place to do online training. Everything's in place. So I blew up the online because I had to shut down my facility for about 10 weeks. So that kind of sustained us. And now it's okay. The playing field has leveled, right? Everybody has access to online training. And with Instagram, you can get so many free tips, right? You don't even really need to pay for it anymore if you're just smart and pay attention.
You can. You sure can. That's right.
So that was kind of where we got into insurance. Both of our boys are in school or about to be in school. And that was the main goal, is I wanted to work from home or be home. So insurance was able to provide that avenue. And then it just didn't make sense to try to hang on to both. When we both could go all in on something that would fit our schedule better.
And it pays good too.
Pays a lot better.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Brian, talk to me about your transition, man.
Transitioning into the insurance business, I'll take it back. Hopefully you're watching this, Bo Brooks, and he's a guy that took me to lunch many years ago. And he said, "Hey, Brian, when you sell your trucks at this lot, how, you sell it, you get paid, right?" "Yeah, obviously." "Well, what happens the next year when they need another truck?" They may come back to me. They may not. It may be 2 years. It may be 10 years. He said, "Well, in insurance, there's a thing called renewals. There's an opportunity where you take care of your customers. They can be your customers. You can live this and do this." And I said, "Okay, but how much does that pay?" And I say, he Wolf of Wall Street to me. He showed me a check stub. And I went, "Oh, okay. All right." That got my attention. Because if I can take our family and now work during school hours to be there for our little ones, to also have more family time, and the opportunity for actually helping people that have been where we've been, our former selves, and looking back and going, "Hey, I've been there. I know what you need." So, you can never really take me out of baseball. It's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Like, one time we're talking in Vegas and you're like, "My flight leaves here and I'm going to be at the ball field at this time." And that's just who we are, brother.
That's right.
And when it comes to our kids, that's the most important thing.
That's right.
So in order to be the dad that I wanted to be, the leader of the family I wanted to be, and also provide an opportunity that I want to provide for my family, this was the answer.
Yeah.
And it's, and then God's like, "Hey, Courtney, come join Brian." And it's like, "Thank you, God. Here we go, here we go." So that was the transition for me. It was obvious when I slowed down and looked.
Sure, absolutely.
That's what it did for me.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more.
Well, you made a great point in the fact that, like, you guys are raising a family, okay? So kids are going to school during the day, and that means all the people you guys were training and working with were in school all day. So that meant when your kids got home, you were going to work. So it was almost like second shift. Mm-hmm. You basically like, I'm going to start my own thing and work second shift. Like, it don't make sense. And that is something that I think everybody goes through when they want to be in the game. It's also hard because, like, unless you're working with somebody at a high professional level, it's a hobby of theirs, even if it's a love, but it's a hobby, and your profession is their hobby, and that don't always work out that great, So Dad and I've been in the business of baseball Dad's been in it 25 years, and I've always been relevant, but I was still playing when he started it, and then even coaching my son's team and whatnot. It's a big, like, it's all in the afternoons and on weekends, right? So, like, it's a big sacrifice. Mm-hmm. It's a big sacrifice. So you guys made the decision that even though the love for the game is the love for the game, the love for the family won the battle, right?
Absolutely.
It came out on top. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's fantastic. So let me look at my notes right here real quick a little bit, okay? So, folks, once again, we're hanging out with Brian and Courtney Smith. We're talking everything from baseball, softball. We're talking families. We're talking working with spouse. That's where we're going next, by the way, so get ready.
There we go.
We're talking podcast studios, media, insurance, all the things, right? All the things. So I'm a big fan of working with my spouse, okay? And I would say it works for less than it does for more, right? So, but the people that it works great for, it's the best thing ever. And then if it doesn't work for you, it's the worst thing ever. It didn't work for my parents. They tried it too, okay? And I won't go into that, but I would say anytime it doesn't work, both parties are at fault to a certain degree, right? So it's obviously working for you guys. Brian, what's the magic sauce, man?
At the end of the day, I have to be the leader that God's called me to be. That's the magic sauce for me, brother. It's having, I tell a story on the way here today. I like to teach through stories, and we start the journey to come here, and I got a little frustrated about something she said or alluded to, and then I stopped and I said, hold on now. Did I start this trip with the GPS coordinates and listening to God? No, I didn't. So guess what we stopped and did right there in that moment? We joined hands, we had our prayer, and guess what? The energy changed.
That's right.
The focus changed. And so the magic sauce for me is get Brian out of the way, let God lead, and be the man I'm supposed to be. So
I think it's 2 hits right there, baby. 2 for 2.
let's go, baby.
All right, Miss Courtney. Let's see if his story adds up. All right, what you got?
Oh, yes, it does. I tell him daily, thank you for really, what was the compliment I gave you a couple weeks ago? Like, loving me like Jesus does. Like, you're like, you forgive and you move forward and you always look for good in situations. Maybe not exactly in that exact moment, but you come around. There's good in there. So in every situation, you see it a lot quicker than I do, because I'm usually in it a little bit longer than you. You pull us out. So he definitely leads us out of the fire of situations or into the fire, however it needs, whatever it was called him to do. So Brian has definitely got out of the way. We can definitely tell there's somebody else in charge.
That's awesome.
Going on.
That's awesome. For Rhiannon and I, it's always, you grow in, I think you grow in stages or chapters. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You have to grow through each chapter before you move on to the next chapter. And her and I are in the middle of one of our transitions to a new chapter, which is always really exciting. And it's cool, man, because I think if you want to see a man that God is preparing for unbelievably big and great things, watch how much he tears them down right before it happens. Oof. You know what I'm saying? So, 2024, I haven't really talked about this a lot, but it's been a hard year for us just because there's been so many things that have happened. I was an hour late getting here today. because we haven't talked about it too much. But we had a massive accident that I didn't cause in our pool. Like literally one of the walls collapsed. And we've had, it's been 2.5 months. It's still a hole in the ground. You guys know we spent a ton of time and a ton of money on that thing. You saw it when it was almost done. And we literally just got it finished, and this freak accident happened, right? So now it's there was that. We've had deaths in the families. Literally, the room we're sitting in today, we walked in one day and power supplies were fried. No idea why. We lost my dad and stepmom were in a really bad car accident. Like one day I was sitting in the office back in the back, and it was raining like crazy outside, and all of a sudden I felt something on top of my head, and I looked up and just like, I mean, it was like bang, 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 bang. And I finally, the redhead comes out, right? So I'm the red Incredible Hulk, if y'all don't know. Something bad happened. But, for the first time, like it was a chance for, I was able to say, all right, dude, what are we doing? Like, what's going on right here? What am I being prepped for? Because it must be freaking fantastic, right? So just working, the whole point I'm making with this extremely long story is that in going to the next chapter, it's been hard because we're still closing out stuff in the final chapter. I was an hour late today because I was waiting on an engineer to come over with an adjuster that I've been trying to get there forever, and they called, and it was just, I got to be there, right? So thank you guys for your grace and patience with that. They drove all the way from Huntsville, Alabama. I should throw that out there too. And they beat me here by an hour.
Right, all good.
Oh gosh. So, but anyways, that's kind of how we grow. And we've always stayed in touch since I met you guys, right? So, Brian, tell me a little bit about how you guys have gone through some similar stuff, right? Where you've had to, man, like for me, it's all about focus, right? And you made a very mature statement that I was extremely proud to hear you say not long ago. And you said, dude, like we're making sure that the insurance is what really makes all this possible. So we're really doubling down and make sure we're getting every last drop out of that squeeze, right? I thought that was fantastic. Dude, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, because, a lot of times people who are business owners or small business owners, and especially me as a ready, shoot, aim guy, I have that shiny object syndrome sometimes that I see, oh, well, this other guy's doing this, maybe I can do that. Or I need to try this. And he said he's making good money. And, you get distracted. And then it becomes, okay, well, what's more important? And as we get the big ass calendar and we start looking at how much time we actually spent doing other things, you start to say, well, hold on now. If my primary goal in life is to be a good leader, be a good dad, take care of this family, well, I've got to put food on the table, right? So in order to put food on the table, this is how I'm putting food on the table. And a very wise man by the name of Nick Hyder told me one time, he said, you can still look to catch the big fish, but don't miss the small fish on the way. And so that really resonated with me several months ago when, I call you and I'm excited about this thing and you say, hey, I understand. Make sure you don't miss these experiences, this journey, because you've been where I've been. Mm-hmm. And so as I progress and I start seeing these things, it's like I stopped asking, well, why did this happen and why did that happen? I'm like, all right, guy, okay, this is another faith test. Let's go. Let me level up. And let me have a little more faith than I did the last time. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. You know, right. I've told her, and I said, I wish, God had a Rolex set to the time and he would tell me when this was going to happen, because that would make it a lot easier to have faith, right?
That's right.
That wouldn't be faith. So that's really the biggest thing for me, is to just check back and go, hey, if this is right in front of you, do the best you can here, and then look for those opportunities, because success to me, as our friend Brad says, relationships and energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how am I showing up? What am I bringing here? So,
well, Miss Courtney, talk to me a little bit about, obviously that was a mutual decision, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to me about what that meant to you and kind of how you guys leverage each other to, because technically I think you can grow twice as fast when you're going the same place together, right? So you grow apart, right? You grow apart, right? That's the saying. So talk to me about what that means to you, Miss Courtney.
Well, there's definitely been a lot of growing on my end, and growing is not always comfortable. And going from a baseball softball structure, like this time of year this happens and this time of year this happens, to going to, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to read my Bible verse, we're going to pray, and then it's pretty much like, okay, God, what are you telling Brian to do? Because I feel like God speaks through Brian and my children to get to me sometimes. So I try to listen more to them, especially our youngest. He's more like his dad. So just really paying attention to them more, and, getting out of my own way, as Brian has already demonstrated, and being a vessel, being, completely getting rid of anything I need for the day. So we're working on the same page, that I'm listening, and I may not always be in tune, but he taught me how to tune a guitar yesterday. So I feel like I'm like, just turn me down a little. Oh no, like I'm right on it, right? So he again takes the lead in that and helping me stay on track. He knows I'm pushing, but I'm not always exactly right on track, and he keeps me there with his faith. And
that's cool. I think you guys have done it. One of the smartest things you did is what Rhiannon and I learned to do, and that is, we're a team, right? Well, guess what? A team is made up of a whole lot of diversity with people who have a whole lot of strengths that are different from other people's strengths, and their weaknesses are different from other people's weaknesses, right? So what Rhiannon and I have always tried to do is make sure that she's working on things that are her strengths, and I'm working on things that are my strengths. We obviously want to make our weaknesses better as well. But like when it comes to I'll read you guys a text message that I sent to her this morning, because a lot of distractions come in all shapes and sizes, right? So the biggest thing we were looking for is we need to focus on the things, like there's low hanging fruit. And there's a few things that there's a few folks that we've been having a hard time getting paid, and a bunch of stuff. So rather than looking for new money for the rest of August, it was like, hey, let's just take that and focus on the money that we've already earned, and let's just make sure we get it this month, right? And I think that'll help, because September is already set up to be a great month, and we're really happy with the way that we're kicking off, or ending the third quarter. But let's make sure we're both focused on that low hanging fruit, so we can close out that chapter and really focus on the next chapter, right? So talk to me about how you guys have leveraged your strengths to grow your business. Brian, I'll start with you.
Yeah. And one thing that I'll say is, Courtney, her degree, while being a 2-sport athlete at UAH, is biochemical engineering. Okay. When I met her, I had to Google that and see what the heck a biochemical engineer does.
I got to Google it right now.
Go ahead, bro, and then tell me what it said. 'Cause
there's a lot. You can do a lot.
So, you look at her strengths. Okay, what does she bring? She brings an ability to absorb knowledge, retain knowledge, and then share that knowledge at a far faster pace than I can. She has a different heart than I do. She has different gifts. She has different strengths. So when you put those things together, you look at it and you go, okay, well, she does a lot of the calls for the insurance business, and she does a lot of that stuff. And then my job may be, okay, well, let me check the back office and make sure that this claim got paid. Let me make sure that this customer is taken care of. And let me make sure that this, maybe somebody needed something adjusted on their payments or add or take away. So when you look at things together, we look back at we've been together for 11 years. I'm throwing that out there. Is that right?
Pretty close. Next week, it should be 11 years.
Next week.
Folks, it was great having Brian on the show. He's no longer with us.
Oh, well, man. I didn't say I was good at math either. So, it's at how many? So in the 11 years, we look back at when were we the most successful is when we were together and when that unit was a team, right? And we used our strengths together. We look back and, hey, man, why did we have a good year there? Well, it's because I listened, she listened, we worked together. We didn't take our own path, which a lot of times, and we talk to other couples that have tried to work together, and they're like, oh my gosh, like how do you deal with that same person all the time? And it's not easy all the time.
No, you get to deal with them. That's how you word it.
Amen. And it's like, hey, who else would I want to work with? And who else would I want to pour my time and energy investment in?
Trust.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, it's I was talking to Dale earlier, and it's like there's not many people like the people that I've been able to be around, like you, like Brad, like genuine good people. And that's a blessing in of itself, brother.
Absolutely.
It's surrounding yourself there, and then you bring in, she's not bad to look at, and she's got some brains. So, hey, here we go. Win-win.
That's right.
Win-win.
A double dose, right?
Win-win.
Double dose. And by the way, everybody loves it, in production, there's a lot of things that can pull you off schedule. All right. And I can't, big shout out to Dale the Super Mill. Because honestly, I think I could charge people just to hang out and talk to him. I really do. I think, you think so, Jensen? I think I could. Because it's just that good of a conversation. I get to hang out with that dude every day.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And he definitely still has the best mustache this side of the Mississippi. You know what I'm saying?
Amen
So,
to that.
all right, Courtney, talk to me about let's hear from you about how you guys position things and all that.
Well, Brian is very much, we listened to your podcast with you and Ree, and as Brian's definitely the big picture. I don't see really past 10 feet in front of me a lot of times. I'm trying to do what's happening right now. Is it right? Am I doing it right, Brian? Are you checking me? I want to make sure things are meticulous and done the right way. At the same time, Brian sees, 3 or 4 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so communicating at, the levels that we're at and meeting each other where we're at and trying to really understand, it's like, okay, I got to let go of a lot of things. I think I need to be successful. I need to be more liquid. I need to be, be in the container that he needs me to be in at the time that he needs me to be there.
Yeah.
And I really like schedules and routines, because, at the college level when I played 2 sports and I had to be in my classes and I was working and, it's
and
like
training for the triathlon during that time. Yeah, she did that while playing 2 sports.
Yeah. And so, everything had to fit in its spot, and it was easier for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm putting this hat on. I'm going to be softball coach. And then, okay, I'm this hat on. I'm college softball coach, or I'm now a college basketball player, and kind of knew my different roles. But when we work together, it's like, I'm Courtney and I'm your wife, and I am the scheduler, and I'm the secretary, and I, make sure lunch, and we're counting macros, and, it's fun. I just have to slow down and be like, what else would I rather be doing?
That's right.
Really.
That's
like,
right.
Well, I could be answering somebody else, or helping somebody else live their dreams. But, his dreams, and I'm stealing this too from Marie, is like, I've been able to adapt my dreams to be his dreams. Like, I want to see his dreams come true. And that's truly my dreams right now.
That's
so
right.
Being able to, take a breath and slow down when things could get hectic for a lot of couples in a business. It's a lot easier to be like, hey, he knows where we're going. I can stop. I know God's really in charge, and I can just slow down.
That's right.
And trust
That's
the
right.
process. So.
The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more.
Dude, because I'm the same way. I live in, like, I'm always thinking about the future so I can live in the present, right? But like, honestly, like, I would forget to eat. I do forget to eat if my wife didn't remind me, and that means I'd probably forget to feed the kids if if my wife didn't remind me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you got to have that, and like, again, there's something magical about taking your weakness and working on it, making it greater. But like, if you've got that covered in another person, in a teammate, and you can reallocate, you can spend that time that you would spend on your weakness on your strength. Well, how much more of a strength is your strength when you can put all that time and energy and focus behind it, right? So I think it's a way to grow extremely fast. Honestly, I think it's the magic pill. But again, it's hard. Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided will not stand," and that starts at home, man. That truly starts at home. He was talking about the country. And it's true today. Lord have mercy, but it starts at home. It definitely starts at home, and the reason that the real reason that Rhiannon and I wanted her to work with us so much, besides the fact that I knew that as soon as like, everybody's always loved Rhea. I was always like, when we first got together, you could kind of hear everybody, being like, really? Like, she's with him? You kind of like when they saw us, but like she was always the one everybody loved. And the moment I could put her face on a flyer, it just made us way more attractive as a business. But growing up, like, you know, my grandparents, even the way it was done kind of at home, if something had happened to the man, my grandmother used to always say, like, if something happens to your grandfather, like, I don't even know what bank account we have or what banks we use, or like, she's totally lost. And that just always kind of stuck with me. I always wanted, if something happened to me, I didn't want my wife, once that was sorted out, to skip a beat. I wanted life to move on, and definitely not me, disappearing for any sort, an accident or anything else. Like, I didn't want that to be a bigger burden than it had to be. So I always wanted to have something that, like, I mean, honestly, if I left today, she could run most of what's running and do a great job with it. That was just always something really important to me. Plus, when I told you it didn't work for my parents, right? Well, one, it was because one didn't truly understand what the other one did, I don't think. And they never took time to maybe talk about that. Mm-hmm. So, I have nothing but respect for all the things that she does, because I've walked in those shoes, just like she's walked in my shoes. So there's a level of respect for what we do in our time, and I think that's really important in a marriage, right? What do y'all think?
Absolutely, because there were times in the beginning in the insurance when she's dialing, and then she was crying because people told her no, and they didn't want to talk to her, and I'd been there, and I'm like.
And they didn't just say no. They said a lot of horrible things before they said no.
Absolutely.
They did. And but I've been there, and I could empathize with that situation, and I knew what she was going through. And then to see her take what she had learned in the sports and the athletic mindset, that how do I win this, and what adjustments do I need to make to get there, has been amazing to sit back and watch how that mindset of, I'll take it back to when I first met her. Nick, I had a checklist of what I was looking for in a female. I wanted this age. I wanted a degree. I wanted her to play sports. I would like for her to be a business owner, because there's a different mindset. There's a different understanding. And there were some things that she checked the boxes. And it's like, some people look at me and they say, well, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have I said, well, if you're going to go buy a car, if you're going to go make an investment, if you're going to spend time, energy, and effort, and wouldn't you want to know what you're doing here? And so the cool thing about that is every year, and sometimes twice a year, those things change. Mm-hmm. And having that partner that you can go to and say, hey, I know what you're doing. I know what your work is. I know what we're doing together. I know what our goals are. What about this? Mm-hmm. Now we don't have to take forever to explain it. And you're more liquid, as she said, and you can take, a lot of times I feel like, proximity and being around people and opportunities come. Well, how can you take these opportunities if you don't have that support at home, right? And That's you right. don't have that understanding of how that works. So, being in a position to say, hey, what do you see happening in the fourth quarter? Well, we could do this together. That's an opportunity. So those are things that are big for us.
Well, boss, what say you over there? You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
I was just really enjoying listening to your answer. I hadn't even prepared mine. That's okay. I was like, he did really good.
He did. But see, that's a very, so a lot of times Rhiannon will say something and they'll look at me. I'm like, there was like, that's as good as you're going to get right there,
That's right.
No, that's fantastic. So, well, let's talk a little bit about, talking about those dials. Okay. Let's talk about those dials for a minute, because again, people don't know, they don't like, I understand if your phone just rang 40 times, but not from me or you, but from probably 40 different people. It's like, if you're number 35 or 40, then you get the patience is worn out, and they just want their phone to stop ringing. I get that. But, so when we were going through that back in the day, there was something in me that was like, I want to make it where, it was almost like I wanted to keep receipts, and everybody that, cussed me out or said the most horrible things they could come up with at the time, I was like, I want to be able to go back and be like, yeah, you remember I called you, and now they're like, oh man, really? That guy called me and I didn't take it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to create that. Yeah. Like, what I mean? I was keeping receipts. I wanted to create that thing, and then I wanted to take that same thing and make it where I didn't have to, they would not take somebody else's call to call me. Mm-hmm. I wanted to create that celebrity, I guess. I wanted to create that brand where everybody knew, like, when it came to this, we got to talk to him first. And so that stuff really motivated me, and they did it to my wife too, and I was really offended by that because I'm like, that's a young lady you're talking to right there. How can you do that? How could you speak to somebody like that? So for me, I was keeping receipts, and it was too many people to keep all the receipts. So it was like, all the instances is what I kept receipts on. And that was what really drove me and motivated me every day. It's like, is today going to be the last time I got to do this? How quickly can I get to the end of this this chapter, and start the next one? And that was what really motivated me to really go all in on doing stuff online, on top of what we were doing, just, marketing to people that we had their contacts, have you guys felt a change in that? Because obviously, you guys have put out a lot of great content. You've touched a lot of folks with your reach, Courtney. How much has the insurance business changed just in the last year and a half from what you guys do and all that?
It's helped me communicate the products better because I'm trying to talk about it more.
So repetitions, that's a big one.
That's a big one, really. And just coming from the sports world too, it's about the reps. And before, I was a subject matter expert and already established that, and I had established that, and I didn't have to really work for it, especially because I was in softball for many years. And so completely getting out of that and really trying to get my feet underneath me and recreating myself as a subject matter expert. Like Brian said, like I have the degree, I have a high level degree. I don't use it, but I have proof that I can learn high level information and say it enough, get it out on a test where I pass, and I have the paper saying
track
that I
record.
can do
That's
it.
right.
Exactly. All right. So I kind of default back to that. Like, no, I'm not using the high level math and the biochemistry to do the reactions and everything that I thought I would be using. Well, actually, I wanted to develop pharmaceuticals. So this is kind of fun, seeing that, what I thought about the pharmaceutical industry is still true. And we won't get into that, but there's a reason why I chose to try to pursue softball over being in the pharmaceutical side of business and just seeing that part of what's going on. It helps me. It makes me want to be more vocal about staying healthy.
No doubt.
Because you don't want to get on medication. And I'm hearing all the medications people are having, and then the financial strain that they're having because, they don't want to eat a salad, and I know we talked about this earlier with Dale up front, but, our kids, we can count on one hand how many times they've been to a fast food restaurant.
How many times somebody in our family has purchased McDonald's and they've never been to KFC. They've never been to a fast food restaurant. That's just, that's what
they've
we
been through a
teach.
Burger King drive-through one time with a family member.
Oh, my dad got on
Yeah. So it's like we can count how many times our children have been through like fast food restaurants and, and you're listening to these people and I'm like, man, like, and diabetes is close to my family because that's ultimately what got my dad. So just listening to how many people are having to pay financially and then physically, like they're like, I'm losing feeling. I'm like, yeah, I know this story with my dad. Like they're losing feeling in body parts. And I don't know really where I was going with that, but it's
tough.
You're equipped to help somebody, to serve somebody you used to be, right? So there's, again, there's those things that motivate you, right? Real life circumstances, real life instances. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Brian, so when we've kept the main thing, I'm looking at our timer over here, right?
Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about personal brand, content, podcasts, all those things. So you got a great podcast. You got an unbelievable state of the art studio. It's like so. Real quick, give me the 30,000 foot view of the studio and kind of like why you built what you built, right?
Okay.
So why did you build one in a mobile home versus in four walls in Huntsville where you live?
Okay. As being a small business owner for 20 years, you look at brick and mortar as I'm leasing this space. Is it my space? Can I do something with it if I change my mind? And being in business, you see sometimes the things you plan don't always happen that way. So, you look at, all right, this is a beautiful, amazing studio right here that can handle a ton of shows. It can do everything. And, I came in here and I saw this and I evaluated. I said, okay. All right. And then by the grace of God, one of the guys on our team had some experience building mobile units for people to work out of. And so we're sitting there on a Wednesday night. I think it was about 10:30 at night. No alcohol, no drugs, no nothing. This is just how my brain works. And I say, hey, what if we put a studio on wheels? And I think both of y'all looked at me like, why? And I said, well, I've never seen one. And asked what would this take? And they're like, oh, God, like, I don't know. So that was a Sunday night. That Tuesday, we go to the local little Campers Inn place, and this toy hauler, who has the ramp on the back where you can get equipment in and out of very easily, had just been traded in. It was 3 or 4 years old. It had the right price. It had everything we needed. We start measuring and looking at some things. By that Thursday, we have it. Saturday, we bring it home, and over the next 28 days, we were able to build, a studio where you've got a full professional studio with the couch and a little green room. And we can run off alternative energy. We can take it wherever we go. We can take it to events. We can show up and be in and out, and it's something that nobody else had. It was something that, how could I set myself apart? Because how many people have a podcast? And then one thing you share, you go, okay, 10 shows, 20 shows, you've done 100 and 150. And it's like, okay, so how many can we get out of here? Well, now I have a studio that nobody else has that I can take to places, and I can maybe show up to an event. Now these speakers that are coming in, how many shows can we knock out in a row there? So those are some things that we're looking at. That's kind of the 30,000 view of it. And, I brought up Brad Lee earlier, and a guy that's helped us both meets me at a mall parking lot. We do a show.
That's cool, right?
And then I turn around and go home, and he goes home, and that was it.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was a pretty cool day to hang out with that guy for a couple hours and him go, wow.
Yeah.
You impress a guy that's seen everything. That's a pretty cool feeling.
That's exactly right.
So
that's exactly right. Well, I've been fortunate enough to sit in that studio with you and chop it up on the microphone with you in an episode. And it was a good time, dude. It feels good. It really does. It's a solid spot. Production quality is really, really good. And like, again, it's, sometimes you can't get people because of distance, right? And so I guess at the end of the day, if you got to get somebody and you can't get them, you can literally go right to them. You eliminated that excuse, right? So on top of the fact, again, from an event standpoint, mark my words, in the next 18 months, if it's not something you see at all events already, I'm gonna say you're gonna see not one but multiple mobile studios at those places, and I guess they're gonna have to come through you.
There you go. Right.
They want it done right. That's a fact.
That's right. Well, you learned a lot.
We did learn a lot.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about when I first built this studio here. It was like with completion, all we did was like, we're done. All right, we're ready. Yeah. And then we turned the cameras on and we realized all the things we didn't think about, all the stuff that happens and has to happen in post. And it was like, all right, well, I'm launching this show called the Hitstreak. And it was like, well, how do you open it? Like, what happens in the beginning? How do you market it? How do you, where do people go get it? All these things we hadn't thought about because it was all studio based. Talk to me a little bit about your journey, Brian. And with that right there, when you got the studio built and you're like, now what?
All right. So my favorite story here recently, I've become friends with the guy who was a general manager at the store that I bought the camper from. And we went out to lunch a couple weeks ago to talk about some things. And he looked at me and said, do you know that you bought probably the least expensive toy hauler in the world and turned it into the most expensive toy hauler in the world? And I said, yeah, I guess I do. No, but things that I didn't realize. I mean, we'll go to the first show that I showed Jensen earlier, and I get back and you came after being up with your daughter one night and showed how professional you were to come in and execute that show. And then the next time I see you, say, hey, what do you need? Could you do an intro for the show? Because I forgot to welcome people to and it's like, you're like, no problem, bro. No problem. So I didn't know I was supposed to do an intro the first time I showed up to your place. Missed the intro. You saved me there. And then when we go into it, it's like, okay, well, how do you want the thirds to say? What does this person specialize in? What are we going to put here? When do we put the subscribe? Are we going to add commercials? Are we going to do this? Or how long does a commercial need to be? Well, Nick's are 20 to 30 seconds. So how long do we need to do here? Do you need to wear a white shirt or a black shirt or this shirt? And then you get everything done and you think, okay, now we're going to start the show. Well, then you get an hour and a half, 2 hours of content. Now, how do we edit this? Where do we move this? Where's the caps? What are we going to pull out for social media? How do we advertise this show? What are we going to do there? And it's like, people say, oh, this is great. This is amazing. Okay.
It's just a small piece of the process, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Because I remember going out to our tech guy and saying, how long does it take you to edit the show? He said, you want it done right or you want it just shown? And I said, well, how long? And he said, it takes a couple to 3 hours per show to put together. And I'm like, it only took me an hour to shoot it. Like, why does it take so long?
That's right.
So there's a lot of things that, and I look back and I watched our first show again yesterday. And I said, you asked me, what are some things you've learned? And I'm like, right now my head's still spinning from buying and building. And now I look back and go, oh. Yeah. If this would have been a little bit wider here, if this would have been a little bit here, like you mentioned the outlet under a couch in the house you're building, it's like, oh, that would have been convenient to have that. As we're trying to plug in something the other day, it's like, okay, that would have been better to have here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the people that I've gotten to meet by being able to be mobile.
There you go.
And the network, and then make this call and this person. And sometimes, you look at the shows and the girl that cuts my hair and my boy's hair, she used to cut mine. It's a little gone now.
She does a great job.
She does a great job.
She cuts all of them.
All of it even. So, she does a show and all of a sudden, boom, 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 her business starts growing. And she's like, hey, I want to do something for you. And it's like, wow, we're really helping people in our community that are good people.
That's cool.
And that's the coolest thing about it, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
All right. I want 100% unfiltered honesty, Courtney, right here. All right. You can't hold anything back on me right here. All right.
Love this.
All right. Here we go.
It's his favorite.
So he's going to buy a mobile home and build a studio. All right. There had to have been a WTF moment. All right. Talk me through that. I know he came to you with this idea. And you're an amazing woman for supporting his vision and his dreams. I think that's fantastic. I told you guys when I met you, you're going to win. It's just a matter of time. If you hadn't already, you're going to win. That's what I know. So there's a lot of faith. You guys are big faith-based people like us, right? So talk to me about that moment where because again, imagine the way I always think it is like, all right, my wife's got to tell her family about this. How's that going to go? All right, talk to me about what happened. Give me that moment.
Well, I guess. I've just watched Brian do so much over the years. And one of my favorite stories he told me early on is when he doubled downs on himself. And I think we said that earlier. It didn't seem that crazy to me because he was in the car business. He had bought and sold vehicles, mobile home. It's similar, right? So, and he understood because there was, he had a great idea with my business. I bought a product and we had it developed in China and, we had to bulk order things to get it here. So instead of, taking up garage space, we bought a trailer and we were able to store everything in the trailer. And when we were done with it, we sold it. So if we rented a space for his studio, when we're done with it, we're done with it. But at least with this, if there is a done or an end to it, I know he can flip it. That's kind of he's always done stuff. He's been able to flip. So I thought this was a great idea. And knowing him and being able to double down on himself, he's in his wheelhouse. It's something he knows. Not really the podcasting per se, but buying the studio and making it mobile. Like I felt like that was in his warehouse. I think some of the purchases I might have been a little nervous when the money started exchanging.
Yeah.
But as far as on paper, the idea, I was like, let's go. Like, this sounds fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When I built this one, this was, when I built this one, that was when we first started diversifying and to other things outside of insurance. And in the insurance space back when we built this, these are like, studios and media are kind of a normal part of a sales center these days. Back then it was not. It was how many people can you cram in four walls, and they need a good headset and some noise reduction headphones and a good phone, and they dial out and they help people, and that's it. So like, I mean, I was laughed at by colleagues over this. I still remember. I guess I keep receipts, right? But I was laughed at. And again, she was, she's the wife of somebody that's getting basically just straight laughed out of town almost, you know what I mean? And she stuck by her guns, and what I told her we were going to spend, we spent like 3.5 times that, you know what I mean? So, but she was right there with me all along the way. And what we spent on this sucker, we've way more than 10x what we spent on it. Right. So, it turned out that it worked. And the other thing we were talking about yesterday was, outside of the insurance, every other thing that we do that brings money into our household is a direct connection from this studio or this podcast. Every other single revenue stream that we have besides insurance is tied to that now. So for me, it was all the people that I wanted to be like, that I looked up to. They all had one. They had a studio. They had a podcast. They had certain things, and it was like, well, I can see what they have, and I think that like what makes a house is certain things that make a house that all houses have in common. And I noticed that this was one of those things that all the people that I looked up to had in common. So I was like, well, if I want to be like them, I guess I better have that in common too. And it did help that we went out to Vegas and saw Brad's spot, and so she got to catch the vision of really what it looked like, and on a large scale, and kind of what we wanted to grow into from there, So it was the room that we're sitting in, and all the rooms that have come from this room, literally changed our trajectory, our lives, but more importantly, a lot of other folks' lives because of the reach that we have, that we've been able to attain. You know what I mean? The reach is unbelievable, and there's when this comes out, we'll already be out there. But we got a couple of we've got a couple of big announcements about an upcoming keynote tour that I'm going to embark on in September, and again, all this stuff comes from building this studio, launching this show, and then all the relationships that came from doing it, you know what I mean? And all the things that we learned, the media and everything else. So it's unbelievable. Kudos to you guys for taking that leap. Are you guys into anything else besides, well, first of all, let me go back to the podcast for a minute, Podcast on Wheels. Mm-hmm. So you've had some unbelievable guests on there.
Yeah. Unbelievable
guests. How many episodes have come out so far? Do you know? I always have to look mine up. What was this week's? 146 or something like that? See, it's every Tuesday. I know that. So some of your guests, everybody asks me, Nick, who's your favorite guest? I'm like, well, my wife, my kid, my cousin. I'm like, who's your favorite Golden Girl? Man, you can't pick that,
Yeah.
So, I won't say who's your favorite guest. Who's some notable guests?
I'll tell you this story. The coolest thing was we were parked at your dad's ballpark right over here in town, and one of the guys showed up on a Ducati motorcycle, mm-hmm. and just whipped in there. And then Matt Murphy hops off his bike and comes up, and we talk about his Green Beret and this life and that life and what he's doing for kids. And a lot of times, it's not what you expect the show to go like, or he opens up and talks about some things, and it's like, how many people will get to hear this that can maybe make a difference?
That's right.
And then you get a guy like, Brad shows up to Cool Springs Mall in his truck and hops out and spends a few hours. Brad does a great job, and he has a ton of nuggets and a lot of information that he shared. But the thing that I remember most that people don't get to see is the conversation we had outside about his health and his family and taking care of Melissa and his girls and his kids and things. And it's like, the experiences, and like you said, how it stems from the show.
Yeah.
So sure, every show, faith, family, fitness, and finance, we hit that subject matter somehow, some way, if not all four. And then it's that relationship after that, hey, call me if you need something. And I learned that from you. The day that I come and spent here last October, I can't tell you how many times you said, don't leave until you get what you need. What else can I provide for you today? And you've been able to help me. It's kind of like, I think I texted you one day, thanks for the breadcrumbs. Like, you're just like, here, okay, this is next, this is what you're going to encounter. And it's like, God's put people in their life. So the number one guest, you, has been the most memorable because of the impact you've had on us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how have we been able to take, and she just told me 30 shows is how many we've released. So in those 29 other shows, how many other people have we taken your sauce, shared it, you know, and in many different ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got one guest on there that I call her my angel,
Yeah.
you know, and she'll text Courtney. We were having one of those discussions, I call it, that married people have sometimes. And we get a text at 8:30 at night from a guest. Just thought of you guys, wanted to say hello.
Mm.
And I said, I don't want to hear that right now. I'm mad about it. You know, and it was like, okay.
Yeah.
That stuff is what
That's right.
is huge.
That's right.
It's huge.
That's right. Well, you know, you keep referencing same thing I do. Like dude, everybody sees the finished product. Man, it's hard. It's hard. Life is hard, dude. And but that's what makes it worth it. You know, when you get closure on something that took a long time, that a lot of when you were faced with a lot of adversity, and more importantly, you know, you can be the last man standing when you watch others just fall, and they don't fall. They actually walk away. You know, by choice. That's what it all comes down to, man. And that comes down to really just the last thing I want to touch on today, unless you guys got anything else, which is great, is just, you know, the faith and the leadership perspective. Because, you know, life does really throw some, you know, some forks in the road and force you to make a lot of decisions you might not be ready to make or even prepared to make, and sometimes willing to make. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's learning how to see that when, again, you're like, when it gets the hardest, that's right when the great thing's about to happen. You know what I mean? Right at everybody else's breaking point. If you can push through that, that's when you make it. And that's the hardest thing to do. So it takes faith in yourself. And for me, it's something else. You know, it's faith in Jesus that gets us there. Talk to me about that for you guys, Brian.
And I'm going to tell you a story that she loves, and I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you. My first professional baseball team that I signed with, the day I got released, I went by a sporting goods store and bought a new pair of spikes. And my dad called me and said, son, you just got released this morning. You should be driving home. And I said, no, this team's at spring training over here. I know some guys. I'm going to go crash at this hotel, and bought a pair of spikes. And one of their catchers got hurt, and I got asked if I could play the weekend, and that turned into a whole season. And there's been many things in my life that maybe I was told, hey, you're not good enough to be here, or you got cut from this, or this is not going to work out for you. And I go, you know, is this what I feel like is God's plan? Is this what I'm understanding? Is this what I can recreate? And to be the leader in faith, it's like, you know, the responsibility that comes with being a true leader is something that I don't think people understand unless you are, because we talk about this all the time. Every step matters. There's a butterfly effect to every decision. Everything, you know, needs to be based off of what is our core values and what is our go-to and what are our standards. And those need to evolve and grow with us each year. So right. I can go back 25 years ago and tell you the day I bought a pair of spikes, and my dad told me, well, you're stupid. You just wasted money. You should be using that to get gas money to come home, because, you know, we didn't get paid very much. So it's like, come on. You know, I just wanted to keep playing. And that's kind of been my thing the whole time. And she said it a few years ago, or maybe last year. I think you said, you're doubling down again, aren't you? I said, why not?
That's right.
Why not? Why not? So,
that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Courtney, talk to me about how faith has been the rock for you guys on your side of things, from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I've told Brian this a couple of times. He's definitely showed me, by being a great leader, what it means to be a Christian. You know, it's not just checking the box on Sunday, even just reading, you know, your Bible app every morning. There's more to it. And he's really led the charge in that. And he does a great job of teaching our children that. And with this podcast, he has, you know, used his gift of getting people to really open up and tell their story and be comfortable. And every single person on the show has demonstrated their faith. Most of them has been in God, right? And the other ones who didn't say specifically God, it was in themselves, or there was some type of faith they pulled from to get them through whatever adversity they were going through, and to be able to see that or those stories be told to Brian's be able to get those out of people is, that's another dream. I feel like that gets to come true with every podcast, is Brian's really, touching lives and making people feel good. Even if it's just, hey, they got heard in that moment, in that podcast, to feel their story, and Brian really gets a lot of energy off of that. So the podcast has shown me, it's put Brian in a different light. Because beforehand he was coaching baseball and I was home with babies, and he's out running for mayor at the baseball field.
Dog catcher, I call it. Yeah.
But he's talking to everybody, he's joking it up, and that's just where he gets his energy. And this podcast has kind of filled that gap, because we're not coaching anymore, but he's able to still really impact people. And impacting the athletes was very important to him too, and he did a great job of that. And getting invitations to weddings and just updates from kids he hadn't coached in years, and they still call him once a month to be like, hey, I'm still doing great. I remember you told me this, and I'm still pushing through. So that's really what the podcast has done for us. I get to see Brian completely different. I'm not in my hole trying to build my business and like checking on him, seeing how his business is doing. Like we're in it together, and that has been just.
It is a great creative outlet.
Great. Yeah.
It is a great outlet, right? Yeah. As we get to the end of this sucker right here, is there anything else that we missed, or any final thoughts that you guys have want to talk about, or anything else, or anything you want to promote, anything anybody needs to know about?
I would like to take, when you're looking at what business to do next, or if you're starting up, or you're looking at what should I get into, a guy told me before I got into insurance, he said, the end game has to be worth the sacrifice, and you have to understand that where you're going is going to be worth it every single day. So if you're sitting out and you're thinking, hey, I might start a podcast, I might start this. A lot of people come to us now and they're like, oh, how many shows you got? Oh, we've done 30 shows. Well, that's awesome. How many? They don't understand what it took to get there, and they don't know if they're willing to do that or not. So when you're looking at opportunities, first off, is your home supporting it? Are we structured in our faith? Is our standards set? Are our core values aligned? How are we going to pursue this? Is there a timeline? Is there a deadline? Are we going to, I had one friend tell me it's God's plan, it's God's bill. Okay. But I've also heard Coach Burt say, there's a tree and there's a desk. Well, somebody had to take the tree and make the desk. Okay. So we still got to do our work and our part, but is it worth it to get that final product? So that would be my encouragement to anybody, is anything is worth doing if that final destination is where you want to get to.
That's right.
So, that would be, get around people like you, somebody that's been there, imitate them, follow them, bother them until they become your friend or tell you to leave them alone, and grow with it.
You don't get anything you don't ask for, very rarely, do you? And championships aren't won by accident. Miss Courtney, anything that, any final thoughts for the folks out there?
Just if you don't understand faith, start learning about it. And I'd encourage everybody, build faith in just yourself and God's plan, and that you're making the right steps, and that it's okay to stumble and course correct too. That there's faith in redirection as well. So.
That's fantastic.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
All right, let's make sure that we get all of the URLs and socials right here. All right, they're in the show notes, okay? But what we know is that they get punched and clicked the most when we get them right on the air. All right, when we get them right on the air. So first of all, I'll start with what I got, and you guys fill the holes. Sound good? Awesome. So online, you can check out Smith Financial Services at smithfinancial.services. That's the URL, right? You can keep up with Brian's personal account at @thereal_Brian Smith. Right. Also, he's on Facebook under the same name. You can keep up with the Podcast on Wheels podcast and just what's going on in the studio on Instagram at online at podcastonwheels.studio, and on YouTube it's Podcast on Wheels as well. And all right, and then Courtney is Mama underscore means underscore business.
That is
right?
right.
All right, good. And then Podcast on Wheels is their Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We're double checking. We got to get this stuff right, folks.
Confirm this, sir.
We got to get this stuff right. And I just posted a story a minute ago. You might hear it, but I hope not. Let's see. I had them at the
Podcast
bottom.
on Wheels Studio. All one word.
That's right. Podcast on Wheels Studio. One word on Instagram, right? So did we get them all? I think we got them all.
Yeah.
I think we got them all.
Yeah.
So I know Cole Thurman will be looking for those a lot, won't he? Yeah, that's right. So
My dude,
all right.
Cole, what's up, bro?
I'm telling you. Well, any final thoughts or anything else as we bring this sucker to a close? Again, you guys are fantastic. You know what? If you don't give your kids a shout out in here, they will remember, right?
Yeah.
So go on ahead and look
Yeah.
at the camera and give them a shout out. So Courtney's over here, Brian's over here. So.
All right, you started. I got you.
All right, Maddox and Brooks, you guys are amazing, and I love watching you grow, and it's really cool to see just witness from this end your life. It's very cool, and appreciate all the sweetness that you have for your family and how much you're like your dad. I like those parts.
Oh, Maddox is 9, Brooks is 6. Maddox was named, his name is Maddox Ripken Smith after a couple baseball players, and then you got Brooks after Brooks Robinson, middle name Hudson after his mom. Both of those guys have given me a new purpose for life. Both of those guys have, being a baseball coach is not going to provide the life that I want to provide for them. So to my boys, thank you for motivating me and kicking me in the ass.
That's right.
That's it.
It's amazing how they can change your dreams,
That's
right? So I love it. I love it. Well, Brian and Courtney, thanks so much for the hang today. It's always a good time. Thanks for your patience, your grace, and just being you, man. You know what I mean?
Glad to, brother.
So, all right, folks. Once again, Brian and Courtney Smith, the owners of Smith Financial Services, the host of the Podcast on Wheels podcast, as well as the owners of the Podcast on Wheels mobile studio. All right, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.